We asked you for your Star Wars hot takes and immediately regretted it.
Like this one from one of our YouTube listeners.
Everything before The Force Awakens is extremely boring and outdated. The best part of Star Wars is when Disney took over.
No warning, no hesitation, just straight violence.
Every week we get yelled at for our hot takes, so this time we're flipping the script.
We went through over 600 hot takes across YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
And now we're reading the wildest, most unhinged ones on air.
Some made us laugh, and some made us question everything.
And some might get you kicked off the Jedi Council just for listening.
Welcome to This is the Wayseekers. Let's suffer together. All right, folks, our first hot take comes from Isaac V24 on Instagram saying, Revenge of the Sith is way overrated, and it's only overhyped because of the Clone Wars nostalgia, along with people just wanting another reason to bash the recent Star Wars stuff. Agree or disagree?
I'm inclined to say agree. Is that bad?
Agree. Okay, listen. When I went back to the movie theaters and saw Revenge of the Sith for the anniversary, I can't lie, there were moments where I was like, this is not anywhere near as good as I remember it.
Right?
But to say it's overrated and overhyped just because of the Clone Wars nostalgia is incorrect to me, because the issues with Revenge of the Sith have nothing to do with the story itself. The fall of Anakin Skywalker, perfect. The fall of the Jedi Order, the fall of democracy, the rise of fascism, perfect, amazing. There's issues with things like the dialogue, maybe the pacing here and there, but the story itself, it's so perfect. It stays so intact that I'm sorry, I disagree. And also the Clone Wars nostalgia, I don't know if it's just because I'm wearing a Clone Wars shirt, but to me, the Clone Wars stands on its own. It doesn't need the prequels to uplift them. In fact, sometimes I even look at them as separate projects.
I mean, to me, I think Revenge of the Sith has always stood out as people saying it's the best just because it has the most lightsaber duels and because technically Darth Vader's in it. So like OG or OT trilogy, people are like, well, that's the best one because Vader's in it. So that's why I'm inclined to say I agree, because when I saw it in the theater, I was like, this movie, not that great. I don't know why. I thought it was going to be so much better than this. It's a great movie. I enjoyed it, but I definitely was left wanting more. I want more, and I shouldn't.
Yeah, that's true. When you think about overhyped, overrated, you have to think about the audience itself. And there's definitely a lot of people that act like that movie was the second coming of Christ. And that's just not what it was. But like at its core, it's a really good fucking movie. It's a really good story. So I don't know. I hate to bash it. Well, before we continue, we just want to welcome everyone to our podcast. This is The Wayseekers, a show for Star Wars fans by Star Wars fans. We upload new episodes every Thursday and shorts every single day, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss out on any content from us. Obviously, today we're reading Star Wars hot takes from our audience.
Some of y'all are really unhinged, like we said in the intro, but I'm also very thankful for everyone who has been interacting on our posts, because it makes episodes like this so much more fun to do.
Yeah, absolutely. This feels so much more like a Wayseekers community type thing. I mean, over 600 comments across all platforms. Star Wars fans are pretty opinionated, I will say.
Who knew? This take comes from at Jobs8659 on YouTube. They said, the droid struggle in Star Wars is massively underexplored and underexplained, and represents a huge waste of potential for the whole franchise.
Agree. I 100% agree. Ever since Solo came out and we saw L337 and her kind of standing up for droids' rights, I thought it was so good, such a good continuation of A New Hope when they say, we don't serve their kind here. But unfortunately, a lot of the fans took that as some sort of commentary on social issues, which I'm sure there is, but one, that's not a bad thing, and two, it just, I feel like, hindered them from doing anything with it in the future, because at the end of the day, they're just going to see it as political messaging, even though it existed in Star Wars in 1977.
I disagree, because I don't think it would be that interesting. Like, think of if we got Andor, but all the characters were droids. You know how I feel about the D-Squad arc in the Clone Wars. I'm just not as interested in these droids. Now, that's the thing. I just don't think it would be that entertaining.
So you'd be one of the people in the Star Wars galaxy that oppresses the droids, is what I'm hearing.
Probably.
I mean, that makes sense. I don't see you hanging out with C-3PO, to be honest.
No, but I want
the fuck out of you.
Yeah, probably. But I want my own little BD droid. So it's
Okay.
I would give my droids the option to be more autonomous.
Mhm.
So I think that's where I would stand. And there are some people that are gonna be like shitty to their droids and put restraining bolts
Mhm.
on them and like not let them do what they want to do. So
Mhm.
I think that's why I disagree. Because
Mhm.
if it was me, I would be nicer to my droids and treat them like actual beings. So
Mhm. But you don't think it could be like some type of commentary for like disenfranchised,
I
marginalized
mean,
groups? I mean, I know they're
yeah,
droids, but like
yeah, definitely. But we can show that like we did in Andor in the Mina Rao arc with
true,
people
true.
because people aren't going to relate to droids because they're machines.
I mean, people relate to giant slugs and shit like that. I mean, I relate to some of these droids. You're telling me you don't relate to B2 Emo's anxiety? I mean, come on.
No,
well, well, lucky you.
I think they should keep exploring it here and there, but I don't think like a standalone show about droid rights.
That makes sense. As its
Boring.
own, yeah, as its own thing, maybe that would be boring. But references here and there, definitely keep it up. I feel like what how did you feel about L3 in Solo?
I liked L3, and on top of that, you keep mentioning Solo, but they did it again in the Mandalorian season 3 too, like with the whole droid bar and everything. Remember that?
But they were really bad about that. You mean season 3
Right?
or season 2?
Season 3,
Oh yeah,
where
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
where they're on
Yeah.
that planet with Lizzo.
I hated that episode, not just
Me
because of
too.
Lizzo, but the whole commentary with the droids made no sense. It was almost like walking back 40 years of the messaging that they've had with
They're like,
droids where
we actually love to serve people. It's great.
So my next number is number 4. This one comes from CJ on TikTok, and they say Mace Windu should stay dead. It makes zero sense for him to come back.
I agree because I love Mace Windu and I love Samuel L. Jackson, but like the character, I don't think people really like Mace Windu for the character. I think we like because it's Samuel L. Jackson and he has a purple lightsaber. Because
Mm,
he's not somebody I root for. He's kind
true.
of an ass.
Yeah, but then like sometimes he's kind of needed to be an ass, you know. I think people
Yeah.
forget that when he's talking to Anakin Skywalker, he is talking to someone who eventually turns into Darth Vader. So Mace Windu is correct. Mace Windu knows. But no, I agree with this take. It doesn't make sense for him to come back for one major reason for me, and that's because you really want the first Jedi that Anakin killed, or I guess partook in the killing of, because I guess you could say Palpatine killed him. You really want that first kill
Oh,
to be the person that lives? Like,
because
that doesn't make sense to me. That is, like, his turn to the dark side. Don't walk that back.
And here's the thing, everyone wants to complain about Palpatine coming back, ruining, Anakin's sacrifice in his story, but
Mhm,
like to what you're saying, you want to bring back Mace Windu, the first Jedi that was like his true fall to the dark side when he made that
mhm,
choice to like cut off his hands and Palpatine to kill him. That's
mhm.
also gonna undo more of Anakin's story. So
Yeah,
let's
and
really think about this. Let's really
right.
like,
Do we need more of Anakin's story being undone or going back on it in the Disney era? I don't think so.
just
Um,
they can give us, well, they're not doing standalones anymore, but I think that a young Mace Windu story could be great for a standalone.
mhm.
There's plenty of younger actors who could take up the mantle. Then again, Star Wars fans hate recasts, so they probably would not like it.
Fuck it, make it animated. If you're gonna make 100 Clone Wars spin-offs, maybe do it about an interesting character that you wouldn't expect. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
because I do think we deserve, I don't want to say deserve. I do think that there is a lot of potential for more Mace Windu stories. I just don't see them past his
Mhm.
demise in Revenge of the Sith. I think there's so much
Yeah,
more to explore, and I loved getting that taste in Tales of the Jedi with him and Dooku. Like
very
that was a
true.
really fun dynamic, and I'd love to see more stories of Mace Windu in his younger years and how
Mhm.
he became this kind of rigid rule follower, but also like the whole story of him in Vapod and using like his dark side and channeling that with other dark siders in battle to like make him more powerful. I know I'm not explaining that perfectly, but
No, but
like let's explore more of that. And I think, what is it, Glass Abyss? Did that come out yet? That Mace Windu book?
Yes, it did. And there's also Shatterpoint, two glass focused
Mm,
Star Wars books. Shatterpoint's from Legends. But yeah, there's a lot more that dives into the character of Mace Windu, and Shatterpoint actually makes him a lot more of a sympathetic character. Which I always like. Listen, my hot take about Mace Windu is that people are too hard on that man. I sometimes fear that there's just a little sense of racism in there
oh,
because
I'm sure.
how is Mace Windu being blamed for most of Anakin's fall to the dark side when
Yeah, it's not his fault.
Palpatine is the one that turned Anakin to the fucking dark side? Anakin is the one that turned to the dark side. Mace Windu literally operated under what he knew, in context of what he knew, which was
Hmm.
that Anakin was like this arrogant Jedi that never fucking listened. And now you're telling me that the senator that we're fucking terrified of now wants you to be on our council as a master? No, I don't know.
Overstepping, yeah.
Like and then there's the line of like where he calls Ahsoka citizen, and it's like, okay, dickish, annoying, yes, but like at the same time, Ahsoka left the Jedi Order. What are you doing here? Why are
Okay,
you?
that was different. That was
Mm,
different. He was being an asshole on purpose that time,
yeah,
just to be an
but
asshole.
well, not
He-
just to be an asshole. It's more of like, why are you here operating under our Jedi shit? You left. We said you could come back. You
I'm
left.
not. I'm not allowing him that one. He doesn't get that one as a pass. But yeah, just give us more Mace Windu stories. We don't need to bring him back and undo
Mhm,
everything that happened in Revenge of the Sith.
mhm,
Just exactly. So CJ, we agree. He should stay
mhm.
dead.
And one last thing, I do think that it's logical, like logically it makes sense that he would survive, right? But sometimes story needs to take place over logic. There's a lot of that when I have like a criticism of Star Wars. I can't think of a good example right now, but then like people like the line of Palpatine or Poe saying somehow Palpatine returned. People try to logically explain that scene to me, like, well, why would Poe know how Palpatine returned? And it's like, yes, logically that makes sense, but when you put it in the context of the story that I'm consuming, that's all the
Hmm.
information we got about how he
Hmm.
returned. So logically it makes sense, sure, but was that the best narrative choice?
Well,
Absolutely not.
Poe was playing Fortnite, so that's how he found out because he heard Palpatine's message.
Yes, 100%.
This next take comes from at Star Wars ASMR 77 on YouTube. Everything before The Force Awakens is extremely boring and outdated. The best part of Star Wars is when Disney took over. Agree or
Mm.
disagree?
Rage bait used to be believable, in my opinion. I
So
mean, come
disagree.
on. Obviously disagree. There's no way that a serious person actually thinks that everything before The Force Awakens is outdated and bad. I mean, sure, when you look back at The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, does the CGI not hold up? Sure. But you know what does hold up across all six movies? The story of the rise of fascism and the fight against authoritarianism and the fight against an evil galactic empire. Reigning over an entire galaxy. How is
Yeah.
that outdated? It's literally happening today, right now, as we're recording this fucking podcast. So
Yeah.
no, I don't think that it's outdated. And you're really gonna champion everything after The Force Awakens as being the best Star Wars. I mean, you got maybe a handful of projects in there that even could be in that category.
Yeah, I disagree with this take simply because I feel like what it really comes down to is they're saying it may look outdated.
Mm,
Because yeah, the sequel trilogy looks the most beautiful because it's the newest,
mhm,
obviously. People thought that the prequel trilogy looked amazing too when it came out. It's
mhm,
just, the way technology has evolved over the years. So no, I don't agree that it's extremely boring and outdated. I would say that a lot of the original trilogy is more boring, and the CGI that was inserted doesn't hold up even as good as the prequel CGI. But that's the thing, is that George Lucas went in and he added things he couldn't add when he originally made the films, and everybody complains about it. So,
mhm,
like, do you want things to be updated, or do you want
mhm.
them to be quote unquote outdated and be what they
Right.
were to begin with? Because, people are always like, release the original cuts. And it's like, you don't really want the original cuts.
Yeah, No, literally, because they showed the original cut recently at some sort of screening, and a lot of the comments were, "Wow, this movie looks genuinely horrible. It looks like it was glued and stapled together," which it was. Like it's that's what
Literally.
Star Wars was. But in 1977, that was the most impressive shit
Groundbreaking.
of all time. Like it literally
Exactly.
inspired generations to go into filmmaking. So I just can't agree with this
I
take
mean,
at all.
and not to like be like George Lucas is amazing, but literally like he's always been a champion for the evolution of technology. So every Star Wars that came out like evolved with technology and with the things ILM could do. So, if they come out with 10, 11, and 12, I feel like people will say to this take, oh, the best part of Star Wars is, 10, 11, and 12 because it's the newest. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. But then again, there's like the Disney Plus shows that look worse than the
Kenobi.
movies. Kenobi
Kenobi.
looks genuinely horrid, but oh well. I guess that's the one that looks extremely new and extravagant and is better than anything pre-Force Awakens. All right, well, my number is 3. So our next take comes from Sean the Space Pirate on Instagram. They say, all of Star Wars, yes, all, including Disney, is peak cinema and the best thing ever. Agree or disagree?
Disagree, because this feels just like they're trying to be silly. Like,
Hmm.
I can't take this take seriously.
No, this is something that a lot of people genuinely say. You've never heard all Star Wars is good Star Wars. It's like a hashtag. It's something that a lot of people say. And I understand that people have good intentions with it, but it's not true. It's just lying to yourself. I do think that the beauty of Star Wars is that every single project is somebody's favorite project. And that's definitely
Yes.
something to take into account. But
Mhm.
to act like every single Star Wars project is good is just incorrect. There's so many factors just behind the scenes that some of these projects weren't even able to be good. And
Mhm.
to act like that doesn't exist is just wrong, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I disagree because, like you said, one, like some of us, our favorite Star Wars can be different, obviously, but just like we do on this podcast, we can critique the things that we love. I am a big Attack of the Clones lover, but it
Hmm.
is not that great of a movie, and the CGI is mostly really bad. So I would
Hmm.
not call that peak cinema.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean we can't like it or love it. You know what I mean? So that's why
Yeah.
I disagree, but I still think it's great to love your favorite Star Wars at the end of the day, even if somebody else is like, that's trash, because you can still have love for it and we can critique the things that we love.
100%. And not to say that this is what this person was doing. I think this person just had a hot take. But a lot of people use the statement, all Star Wars is good Star Wars, to take away from people that are criticizing Star Wars, acting like they're toxic and, part of
Yeah.
the anti woke crowd and whatnot. It's just not what it is. So I don't know. I have a lot of negative connotations with that statement.
Sorry, Sean the Space Pirate, but thank you for submitting a comment. We appreciate it. Thanks for your take. This next take comes from Chong on TikTok. The 2003 Clone Wars micro series is better than the 2008 Clone Wars and is the best Star Wars show of all time. Agree or disagree?
Disagree. It's not even a real show. I mean, Clone Wars 2003, it's fantastic, but there's no dialogue. It's just literally a, a demonstration of aura. Like the Jedi just look really cool, the clones look really cool, but it's not meant to be like an actual story. Like, how could you say that it's the greatest Star Wars show of all time when Andor exists, when the Clone Wars and Rebels, all the animated shows are better than this show, simply based on the fact that these are actual shows, and this was literally meant. I don't know if people knew this. The Clone Wars 2003 series was made so that Star Wars was put on TV, so kids were watching, and then they would go buy the toys from the cartoon. It's literally what they used to do with Hot Wheels. It's what they used to do with Transformers, and that is the sole purpose of 2003 Clone Wars existing. Is it nostalgic? Yes. Is it amazing? Yes. Is it a real show? No. So no, I
Yeah.
disagree.
I disagree too, because honestly, it's more of just like a highlight reel. Or it's like if you
Exactly.
take all of the action out of the Clone Wars 2008 series and make that like the actual series, you take away all that dialogue. And I know people are going to say in the comments, there's dialogue in the Clone Wars micro series, and there is.
Barely.
However, you know, those moments, those aren't the moments that people are referencing. No one's, talking about like the few dialogue moments we get in that series. They're talking about, like you said, how the Jedi look cool, the clones look cool. It's all
Mhm.
action. It's all in your face, and like it did what it was supposed to do. It made
Mhm.
you want to see more of this universe, buy these toys. Like,
Mhm.
so do I think it's a great underrated piece of Star Wars media? I don't even want to call it a series. Like, is it an underrated piece of Star Wars media? Yes. And to me, like, I didn't watch it for the first time until like a year or two ago.
Mhm.
So obviously, I watched the 2008 series first, and I do think the 2008 series is the better series. But there is some cool stuff that does happen in the micro series, like Anakin being knighted, the whole Anakin versus Ventress on Yavin. Like,
Yeah,
those are some really great moments that I wish we could see more of. But like, does that make the Clone Wars micro series amazing and like better than everything else? No.
definitely not. Definitely not. So yeah, disagree. I think that that's pretty clear. All right. So this one comes from Vinnie C on TikTok. They say, I never liked the idea of Anakin being a chosen one and his destiny being predetermined. It's just a boring concept in my opinion. Agree or disagree?
My first instinct is to say agree, and simply because I feel like it sounded cool on paper, but it's one of those things where George Lucas was like, this is a really cool idea, and like he's kind of like the messiah of the Star
Mhm.
Wars universe. But like he never fleshed out what the chosen one really was. And
Mhm.
so now we've got all this media trying to fill that in, and
Mhm.
it's just like making it really boring. It's kind of like the mystique behind Yoda. If we
Mhm.
explain everything about Yoda, his species, and everything, he's not going to be as intriguing. The Chosen
Mhm.
One, like the words "the Chosen One," sounds really cool on paper, but the more it's
Mhm.
explored, the more it's like, so no matter what,
Yeah.
Anakin like didn't have any agency over his future.
Yeah, and there's ways to do prophecies in Star Wars. We just saw Andor. They basically confirmed that casting Andor has this sort of prophecy.
He's a
Well, that's the thing.
messenger.
They didn't necessarily confirm it, and that's what I
Mhm,
think is the difference there. It's like an idea from this person that believes in the Force, that's like this Force healer. With the prequels, at least the way a lot of the people take it, is that this is some final determined thing that Anakin is the chosen one. That doesn't make sense when you look at Return of the Jedi. Like it's so much better story wise to think that Anakin came back from being Darth Vader and saved his son and eventually ended up doing the right thing, right? I
mhm.
don't like the idea that that was some sort of prophesized thing. It takes
Yeah.
away, like you said, a lot of the agency of the character. Um, it also makes it impossible to continue the story past Return of the Jedi without cheapening that a little bit. Because
Mhm.
how do you have a story with good against evil if he defeated the evil and brought balance to the Force? And that's
Exactly.
exactly why in a lot of Star Wars media, they are, like you said, trying to explain it. The biggest explanation right now is that the prophecy was bullshit. Or not bullshit, but like it was just a theory basically. There was no set in stone confirmation. A lot of the
Mhm,
Jedi didn't even believe in the prophecy, and I think that that's what it works better as. But then like when you have to go back and explain all these caveats, it's like
mhm.
maybe you just shouldn't have included it
Yeah,
in the
like
first
leave
place.
some of the mystique behind it. And I mean, if anything, I think I personally am very pro, like, yes, there is a chosen one prophecy, but the chosen one is not just one person. I like the idea of it being Anakin, but also that Luke kind of takes up that mantle as well, and even Rey could take up that mantle as well. Like, I like the idea of the chosen one not being just one singular person, and that's how it works for me.
Mhm.
And I think it works better that way because it's more of a, I don't know. It doesn't make it so finite.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah, I've never been a big fan of it, honestly, and that's something I've definitely said before. I don't know if it was on this podcast or on my Instagram or what, but it's definitely an opinion I've shared for a while. So agree.
This next take comes from Z on TikTok. The anti woke crowd don't fundamentally understand Star Wars. The writing can be bad slash not preferred, but it's not because of women, BIPOC, or LGBTQ plus.
Amen. A motherfucking man. Shout out to Z with the number one take. It's actually funny that this take was mentioned right after I mentioned the anti-woke crowd. But I mean,
Honestly.
come on, it's so true. It's something we've said 100 times on this podcast. At this point, it might even be the thesis of This is the Wayseekers podcast, that there is plenty to criticize, and it's totally okay to criticize Star Wars. But to say that it's woke or, it's bad because there's women included, BIPOC, LGBTQ individuals, that's the reason Star Wars sucks now. It's just bullshit. And honestly, saying that and regurgitating that and repeating that is not going to make Star Wars better, because you're not
No.
addressing the actual issues, which is writing, direction, acting, all the things behind the scenes. Disney being a money hungry company.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I mean, not to mention the fact that you're just hiding behind the fact that you're a misogynist or racist or homophobic, transphobic. So you're just latching on to things that you don't like and then blaming those things without any real substance behind those blames. Just admit when Star Wars needs to do something better and don't attach
Mhm.
it to something that you just don't agree with. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
actually pull back the curtain, take a look at the series or the movie or the show or whatever, and then really address what the problem is. Like you said, it's mostly always writing or budget cuts or
Mhm.
rushed productions. Like,
Yeah.
maybe we should start blaming Disney more. But that's,
Yeah.
maybe that's
Yeah.
the real problem sometimes, is these horrible people behind the scenes, these money hungry people, investors just wanting to
Mhm.
make money. And just
Yeah.
wanting to make money does not make good art.
Exactly, 100%. Star Wars has always been political at its core since the
Yeah.
very beginning. So to act like that doesn't exist or to take away from it, it just makes no sense to me. I mean, for me, for example, Rey from Star Wars, obviously a character that's like super attacked by misogynists online, but there's plenty of genuine criticisms of that character. I don't see why people aren't more inclined to talk about things like how I don't feel like the Skywalker name is earned for her at the end of the movie. It feels rushed. It feels like it wasn't earned for her. That's completely fine. Now, saying that she doesn't earn the Skywalker name because she's an inferior woman, all
Yeah.
right, that's
No.
crossing a line.
Yeah. Well, some people just don't have good media like comprehension.
Yeah, 100%. So this next take comes from Eric Rebel Jedi 23 on Instagram, and they say The Acolyte is one of the best shows to come out of Disney. It gave us a brand new story outside of the Skywalker saga and blended new lore and older EU/Legends content. It had a rocky start, but what first season doesn't? It delves more into what happened in the prequels to how the Jedi got to where they are. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
Okay, okay.
I won't say it's the best show to come out of Disney because that's obviously Andor,
Mm,
but The Acolyte did similar things to Andor, where it took a risk, took a story that we hadn't explored really, took brand new characters for the most part, and
mm,
really showed us like how we got to where we got to in the prequels, which is what it set out to do. People just didn't like the fact that it painted the Jedi in a negative light, when at the end of the
mm,
day, like, we start off painting them in a negative light just with Anakin at the beginning. We're like, he's too old. He's got
mm.
attachments. God forbid. Like, we don't want him.
Right.
Like, like it
Do
really
you
paves the way for that. And plus, I just liked the show and thought it was really good.
Mhm. I mean, I somewhat agree. Obviously, I have criticisms of the Acolyte.
Well,
Well,
we can't somewhat agree or disagree.
no, you can somewhat agree or disagree. I ain't no damn monolith.
You're
But
not a Sith. You don't deal in absolutes.
exactly, 100%. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Um, Obviously, I agree with the stuff saying it gave us a brand new story outside of the Skywalker saga. Very good stuff. Blended new lore and older EU lore.
Love.
Also, something that's way overlooked within the Acolyte. The
Yeah.
lightsaber choreography, fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like it wasn't the best in terms of writing. And I do want to ask you. You talk
Oh.
about how they criticize the Jedi. Do you think that they were criticizing the correct things here? Because honestly, I've never been a fan of the idea that the Jedi are kidnapping children, and
Hmm.
that's kind of that's not exactly what happened in the Acolyte, because they obviously let Osha have some agency, or was it May? I don't know the fucking difference.
It was
Um,
OSHA.
Osha, right? They let her have some agency there and let her choose to leave, but I don't know if I liked the whole commentary of the Jedi coming in and taking over a planet, an indigenous group to this planet,
Yeah.
with the witches. I'm like, that's not you set that up in this show. That's not something that's like across all of the Star Wars media.
Well, exactly. That's the thing, is that it's not saying that this is what all the Jedi do. I feel like what the Acolyte did was like hone in on one specific mistake that one specific Jedi made that doesn't necessarily speak for the Order as a whole, but it's saying like
Mhm.
little things like this started to happen more
Mm,
often, which makes sense why at the time we get to the Phantom Menace, the entire Order has these
mhm,
flaws because everyone started going into, like, they were giving into the things that we know that cause issues and cause people to fall, as like these attachments, and
mhm,
there's ways to have healthy attachments, obviously, but at the time the
mhm,
Jedi weren't doing anything to like, we were seeing their fall from the High Republic up into the Phantom Menace, and there's a big change that happens, and we saw
mhm,
that reflected in the show. And
mhm,
like I said, I think it's just, we're not talking about the Order as a whole. We're just showing these are little mistakes that happen that lead to the overall fall. Now, I do think that a big problem in that was Vernestra and the way that she kind of handled things. And I
mhm,
know people who love the High Republic also didn't love her portrayal in the show.
mhm,
So, yeah, do I think it was the best writing and like the best, like everything? No, but I still think it was one of the most interesting shows that Disney
mhm.
came out with in this era. So,
Yeah, I agree, and I think that if the show kept going and had more seasons, it would have been regarded as one of the best Star Wars shows ever.
just like
Um,
Eric Rebel Jedi 23 said, like,
mhm,
what season doesn't have a rocky start for the first
mm,
season?
Andor, The
That's true.
Mandalorian.
Well, The Mandalorian, that's a whole nother story.
That's true. Maybe it could have gotten worse, like The Mandalorian. We'll never know, though.
This next take comes from Jolly Yellow Presents on TikTok. Phasma could have and should have been this generation's Boba Fett, character who had almost no screen time but became a fan favorite. Agree or disagree?
I mean, I guess I agree, but I also think that Captain Phasma already takes up that mantle in the sequel trilogy. I mean, like this person said, she's a character that has almost no screen time, but I guess she didn't become a fan favorite, but she has a lot of moments that are like extraordinary. I mean, her fight with Finn, things like that. Like, and she's expanded a lot more in the books and comics, and it makes her much more of an interesting character, and it
Mhm,
makes you look back at the movie and go, "Oh wow, I wish we had more of that character. I wish that they didn't have such a unceremonious death like Boba Fett had in
mhm.
Return of the Jedi." I might even argue that Captain Phasma did more in
Oh,
the
she did.
sequels than Boba Fett.
And she had way more screen time as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but here's the thing. She won't become this generation's Boba Fett because she's a woman. And because
Mm.
Star Wars fans, not the fans, like, there's a lot of misogyny in Star Wars. We know this. We've talked about it in this episode. Like, people, I don't want to say people, it's just men in the fandom who are misogynistic. Like, they don't like Captain Phasma as much as they like Boba Fett because she's a woman. That's literally
Mm-hmm.
the only issue.
Yeah.
And like we just discussed, she does way more than Boba Fett in
Mm-hmm.
his movies. Now, when we get the Book of Phasma, then we might have something else to say. Which honestly, I would welcome that, because Gwendolyn Christie, I think,
Oh
like,
yeah.
as Captain Phasma, was such a wasted opportunity of such a great
Mm-hmm.
actress,
Mm-hmm.
and I would love more Phasma on my screen
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, and in my opinion, there's just not much more room for Captain Phasma in the sequel trilogy. I feel like she kind of served her purpose of, being the leader of the stormtroopers, which gives Finn a really good villain, and we see that come to fruition in The Last Jedi with their fight. The one thing I would have liked to see more from Phasma is maybe keeping in that deleted scene where after she, gets a piece cut from her helmet by Finn and she
Mhm.
dies in the movie, that's just it. That's it for Phasma. She dies there, but in the deleted scene, she actually comes back, climbs out, and they have another standoff. And Finn calls her out in front of a bunch of stormtroopers for lowering the shields on Starkiller Base, being very selfish, because a lot of the other, probably even lower level stormtroopers would have been like, "No, I'm not lowering shit. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
kill me." But
Mhm.
Phasma was always for herself. And then there's like that there's a little bit of interesting stuff in there that I don't think would have been able to been explored in the sequel trilogy, because that's not the story. But there's some stuff in there that they could definitely explore in books and comics, which they already kind of have. So
Well, here's the thing. There's just too many characters in the sequel trilogy that they wanted to have moments. Too
that's
much
true.
too much going on for three little movies.
Hmm.
Despite all the crazy behind the scenes stuff in general, there wasn't enough time.
Yeah,
There wasn't enough
100%.
time to really build her up to be anything. So,
Well, Scotty, I think that that was a good take to end on here. Obviously, like we said, we have a million takes, so I think that we may come back to these in the future. So if you have a hot take, I would say leave it in the comments below, because maybe next time we'll respond to some actual YouTube comments instead of just YouTube shorts. And I think it's worth pointing out that even if we disagree with your takes, like a lot of you disagree with ours,
yep,
that's the beauty of it. Everyone has a different stance on Star Wars, but at the end of the day, it's the thing that brings us all together. It's the thing that
exactly.
brings us here for these 45 minutes every week to discuss Star Wars together with all of you guys. So don't feel attacked or anything like that if you share any of these opinions that we completely shitted on, because trust me, every single opinion that we share online is also shitted on.
That's the joy of being a content creator.
Yes. Well, Scotty, if there's nothing else left, why don't you send us out of here?
Make sure you follow us on social media at Wayseekers Pod or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out on our content. Thank you all so much for watching or listening, and may the force be with you always.